Welcome, learners, to the deep dive. This is where we really try to cut through all the noise and get straight to the insights that genuinely matter.
That's the goal.
And today, we're diving headfirst into a question that's echoed through time, really shaping individuals and nations. What actually moves us?
A big question.
Yeah. Is it, that stirring speech that just resonates deep down? Or maybe a personal revelation that completely shifts your life's direction?
Or even a collective call to action, something that ignites a whole movement.
Exactly. We're constantly being shaped by words, by ideas, and by that relentless human drive to achieve something more, right? To make a mark, or maybe just to find our own acres of diamonds, as one of our sources puts it.
Indeed. And for this deep dive, we've gathered a really fascinating mix of sources. At first glance, you might think they belong in totally different libraries.
Like what?
Well, we've got ancient texts on the art of rhetoric, Tanthus's Aristotle, Plato. Then we jump forward to modern guides on personal success, mindset. People like Earl Nightingale, Tony Robbins.
Okay, quite a range.
And then, tying it all together, some of the most powerful society-shifting speeches from history's changemakers. So think Sojourner Truth, Nelson Mandela.
Wow. So, ancient philosophy, modern self-help, historical speeches. What's the mission here? How do we connect these dots?
Our mission today is to pull out the universal principles, the timeless stuff. What are the common threads connecting, say, an ancient Greek orator trying to sway an assembly to a modern motivational speaker trying to empower just one person? Or thinking about impact, someone like Patrick Henry, whose speech is said to have pushed the American colonies towards revolution.
Give me liberty or give me death. That kind of power.
Precisely, that raw power of persuasion. So we'll explore the deep mechanics of how that works, the secrets of individual achievement, and the sheer force of human connection that drives change, whether it's personal or societal.
Okay, I'm ready. And for you listening, get ready for some genuine aha moments, because we'll unpack how these insights apply directly to your experiences.
Absolutely.
Whether you're aiming for a personal goal, trying to communicate better at work, or just making sense of the big shifts happening around us, I think you'll find some really powerful takeaways here. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
Let's start at the beginning then, with the absolute masters of the spoken word tracing their wisdom right back to ancient Greece, birthplace of democracy, philosophy.
Right.
From those, vibrant Athenian assemblies, what did figures like Aristotle and Plato really understand about moving an audience? What can they still teach us about impact and persuasion?
Well, what's truly fascinating here, and it really jumped out at me looking through these sources, is just how incredibly consistent the core principles of effective communication have remained. Thousands of years.
Really? The same basic ideas?
Yeah, it highlights something enduring about human psychology, doesn't it? How we're swayed, what hits home, what just falls flat. Aristotle in his Rhetoric gives us this incredibly detailed breakdown. He identifies 5 essential parts of speech. It's a framework that, honestly, still holds up today.
5 parts? What are they?
He called them invention, arrangement, expression, memory, and delivery.
Okay, so invention, arrangement, expression, memory, delivery. It's not just about the words then, it's the whole process.
Exactly, from conception to execution.
What did he mean by invention? It sounds like making things up.
No, not quite. Invention here isn't about pulling ideas out of thin air. It's more about the process of discovering the most effective means of persuasion for a specific situation.
Discovering? How so?
It's figuring out what to say, the arguments, the evidence, the emotional hooks before you even think about how to structure it. That's the groundwork.
Okay, so finding the right tools for the job. Then arrangement, that sounds more straightforward.
It is, in a way. It's about ordering those arguments logically and persuasively.
Yeah.
Putting them in the right sequence for maximum impact. But then expression. He wasn't just talking about fancy language.
Oh, what else?
Clarity. He emphasized clarity above all else, and the appropriate use of metaphors, ones that are, as he put it, clear, pleasant, and unfamiliar. They grab attention.
Unfamiliar.
Interesting. Why unfamiliar?
Makes you think, right? It creates a little spark of novelty. And he even talked about rhythm in speech, making sure it's definite, but not so metrical that it sounds like you're reciting a poem. It needs a natural flow, a musicality that helps the message stick.
So it's not just what you say, but how you say it. Down to the rhythm, the word choice. That's meticulous. And he also talks about shaping perception, which feels incredibly relevant today.
Oh, absolutely. This is classic Aristotle. He highlights the art of reframing attributes.
Reframing, like spin?
You could call it that, maybe? Imagine taking someone seen as overcautious, You could reframe them as cool and calculating, smart, deliberate,
Okay, let's see.
or someone seen as rash suddenly becomes courageous, bold, decisive.
Right. Same behavior, different label.
Exactly. It's not always about lying, but about presenting a characteristic in its most favorable light, or sometimes unfavorable, depending on your goal, even if, as Aristotle notes, it's based on a false inference about the reason behind the trait.
And why does that work so well, even now? Well, his insight wasn't just how to reframe, but why it's effective. We seem wired to accept explanations that fit our existing beliefs or values, and this leads to his very audience-centric approach.
Audience-centric.
Yeah. He famously notes, "It is not difficult to praise Athenians among Athenians. People like hearing good things about themselves or things they already value."
Makes sense.
So an effective speaker, Aristotle argued, must tailor their message to what is honored by each specific group. Whether you're talking to Scythians, Spartans, or philosophers, you need to understand their values and speak directly to those. No one-size-fits-all speeches.
That's incredibly subtle, isn't it? But also really powerful. It makes you think about modern politics, advertising, even just personal branding, how much relies on exactly that kind of reframing.
Almost unconsciously sometimes. The ancient Greeks were basically teaching us the foundations of modern spin in a way.
So what does that tell us about human nature? That these tactics are still effective thousands of years later?
Well, it points to our inherent biases, I think. Our desire for narratives that confirm what we already believe, and our susceptibility to emotional appeals. Aristotle got that people aren't purely logical machines, we're emotional, tribal. The scary part, maybe, is that human nature in its core receptiveness to persuasion hasn't really changed. The tools for influencing perception, even through those false inferences, they remain potent because we often value confirmation over deep critical analysis. It's a bit sobering.
Definitely a sobering aha moment about how we process information. Okay, so that's Aristotle. But then you have Plato, who, through his character Socrates, seems to offer a really stark contrast, almost a critique of this whole art of persuasion. He seems wary.
Oh, deeply wary.
Yeah.
And in a way that can still make us uncomfortable today. In a dialogue Gorgias, Socrates really doesn't pull any punches.
How so?
He challenges the whole idea of oratory being just a skill of persuasive speaking. He goes so far as to call it a pursuit which has nothing to do with art, but is actually just pandering.
Pandering. Wow.
Yeah. He provocatively compares it to cookery or beauty culture, things that provide gratification, a knack for pleasing, but not true art, or based on real knowledge.
So like junk food for the soul versus real nourishment.
That's a great way to put it. It raises this critical question. Can you genuinely lead or persuade if you're not grounded in truth? Socrates is firm. True oratory must be based on knowing the truth of the matter to be addressed, not just knowing what the masses might take to be right.
So if you're just telling people what they want to hear, flattering them, you're not really serving them. You're just a chef, not a doctor, maybe.
Exactly. And this is where it gets really interesting. Socrates' method of questioning, the famous elenchus.
The Socratic method.
Right, it's all about exposing contradictions. He argues that orators, even powerful tyrants, if they act without true knowledge of what's good, they do not do what they really want to do.
Wait, how can they not do what they want to do? They seem pretty powerful.
But want here means what's truly fundamentally good for them or for the state, based on reason, not just satisfying immediate desires or impulses. If a tyrant acts unjustly out of ignorance, believing it makes him powerful, Socrates would argue he's actually harming his own soul, which isn't what anyone truly wants.
So they might have influence, maybe wield power in a superficial sense, but not true power if it's not rooted in understanding what's actually beneficial.
Precisely. Think of it like this. If you say you want to be healthy, but you spend all your time eating junk food and feeling terrible, Socrates would use the elenchus to gently show you the contradiction. He's trying to help you see you're not actually doing what serves your deeper desire for health.
Okay, I get it. True power comes from aligning actions with genuine, reasoned desires.
That's Plato's view. And he builds on this in another dialogue, Phaedrus, where he defines rhetoric more positively but more dentingly as leading the soul.
Leading the soul, that sounds incredibly profound, way beyond just persuasion. What does that actually involve for a speaker?
Well, for Plato, to be a true expert rhetorician, you have to understand the nature of different souls, their dispositions, desires, weaknesses, and then you need to know which kind of speech genuinely suits which kind of soul to lead it towards what is truly good.
Wow, that's like psychological insight combined with moral philosophy.
It is. He proposes the method of collection and division as a way to grasp truth thoroughly first. It means dissecting concepts, understanding their fundamental parts, distinguishing similar things according to their natural joints like a skilled butcher.
Okay.
Only once you have that deep, structured understanding of the truth can you craft speech that is not just persuasive, but fundamentally true and beneficial for the soul you're addressing. It's the difference, again, between a quack selling snake oil and a physician offering a real cure.
A much higher bar for the speaker.
Yeah.
And Demosthenes, the famous Athenian orator, he gives us a practical example of this kind of rhetoric in action, right? Or maybe its limits.
He does. Demosthenes is known for his fiery speeches against Philip of Macedon. He powerfully illustrates the art of definition. He didn't just call Philip's actions aggression, he labeled them tyranny.
Ah, framing it morally.
Exactly. That single word elevated the conflict, framing it as a fight for freedom against oppression, not just a land dispute. That resonates, doesn't it? How language shapes narratives.
Definitely. But you mentioned limits.
Yes, because Demosthenes also provides a sobering lesson. His warnings to other Greek cities, like the Argives and Messenians, were apparently well received at the time, but ultimately worked no lasting effect.
So great speech, but no real change.
Right. It underscores that even powerful, truthful rhetoric can be neutralized by other factors. Maybe apathy, fear, political inertia, competing interests. Persuasion is rarely a simple one-shot deal. Even the best orator can't always overcome the circumstances.
That's a crucial point. Success isn't guaranteed, even with all the techniques. And that actually makes me think again about Patrick Henry. You mentioned him earlier. His words, arguably, didn't just warn, they ignited something. That give me liberty or give me death speech in 1775. It's seen as this pivotal moment pushing towards the American Revolution. What would Aristotle or Plato have made of Henry's approach?
That's an excellent connection. Patrick Henry, standing before the Virginia Convention, really exemplifies a synthesis of many of these ancient principles, particularly in framing an unavoidable choice in stark moral terms.
Like Demosthenes defining tyranny.
Exactly. Henry defined British rule not just as unfair, but as impending slavery and submission. He left his audience no comfortable middle ground. He wasn't just listing grievances. He framed it as an existential threat to their liberty, a core value for that specific audience in colonial Virginia. He absolutely knew his audience, their fears, their simmering resentments.
Tailoring the message, like Aristotle said.
Precisely. And you could argue perhaps it was a form of leading the soul, as Plato might say, albeit towards a very specific dramatic action. Revolution. He certainly didn't shy away from emotion.
No kidding. Liberty or death is pretty emotional.
Pure, unadulterated emotional appeal. It strips away all nuance, all hesitation. It's a call to arms, presented as the only honorable choice left.
Yeah.
And the delivery, the Actio accounts, suggest his speech was delivered with such fire, such intensity and conviction that it mesmerized the delegates.
So it wasn't just the words, but him embodying the message.
Yes, making the audience feel the urgency, the truth of it in their bones. He was forcing them to confront an unbearable future and make a profound, life-altering choice. And unlike Demosthenes' unheeded warnings, Henry's words landed at a time when the conditions were ripe, the audience was ready to be moved, and the rhetoric was flawlessly executed. It shows that, yes, sometimes a single voice can ignite a revolution.
That's a fantastic bridge. So moving from Greece and revolutionary Virginia to the halls of power in Rome, we see oratory evolve even further, right, into this full body, full mind performance. Cicero, Quintilian, they offer insights that still feel relevant.
Absolutely. This is where that blend of intellectual rigor and powerful emotional delivery really crystallizes into a comprehensive approach to influence. Cicero, in De Orator, he stresses not just pure and clear diction, but also an ornate style.
Ornate, like flowery.
Not necessarily just flowery, more about continuous grace, using light and shade, showing a sophisticated command that captivates attention. But crucially, he insists the speaker must thoroughly understand all the emotions of the mind.
Understand emotions? How?
Knowing precisely how to calm an audience, or how to excite them, how to move them to severity, to sorrow, to joy. It's about mastering the emotional landscape.
That sounds like being an emotional conductor, but how do you do that without being manipulative, especially given Plato's warnings we just talked about?
That's the ethical tightrope, isn't it? For Cicero, it wasn't about manipulation in a cynical sense, it was about empathy. He believed the speaker needed to genuinely feel the emotion themselves to convey it authentically. And the delivery, the actio, was key.
The performance aspect again.
Immense stress on it. Cicero called for action varied, vehement, full of spirit, full of pain, full of truth. This isn't just acting. It implies genuine conviction shining through. The voice, the gestures, the expression they all had to convey that inner truth. The orator had to embody the message, make it visceral.
So the speaker literally had to become the message. Wow. Then Quintilian takes this even further in his Institutio Oratoria. He famously defines the ideal orator as a good man, skilled in speaking. That's a huge claim. You can't be truly persuasive unless you're actually good.
It's a powerful ideal, isn't it? Quintilian argues that no man can be an orator unless he is a good man. His reasoning, that wickedness and virtue simply cannot coexist in the selfsame heart.
So a bad person can't be truly eloquent.
He believed true eloquence, the kind that genuinely moves and inspires lasting change, stems from deep moral conviction. A wicked person might be cunning, maybe deceptive, perhaps temporarily persuasive, but they'd lack the authentic moral authority for profound, enduring influence. It definitely makes you question, does true lasting impact require integrity, or can sheer technique be enough?
A question for the ages. But was Quintilian purely idealistic, or did he also get into practical strategy?
Oh, incredibly pragmatic, too. He offered advice that sounds like it could be from a modern communications consultant or a trial lawyer.
Like what?
Well, structuring arguments. He notes that sometimes it's more effective if points appear to be discovered on the spot, using phrases like, "Oh, it has almost escaped me."
Making it sound spontaneous and deeply felt, not rehearsed. Clever.
Right. Other times, though, he suggests you might need to hoodwink the judge and work upon him by various artifices if your point is somewhat startling.
Hoodwink the judge. That sounds less virtuous.
Huh. Well, it highlights strategic presentation, not necessarily outright deception, but managing how information lands, especially if it's challenging. Avoiding immediate rejection, giving the idea space.
So it's not always about pure logic. Sometimes appealing to emotion is needed to bypass a resistant mind.
Precisely. He states flat out, the power of eloquence is greatest in emotional appeals. He even cautions against getting bogged down in minute and microscopic division when you're trying to sway judgment, because deep emotion can be a powerful tool to perhaps divert attention from tricky details if needed.
Interesting. And he gives specific legal defense tactics.
He does. He outlines the options.
Yeah.
You can deny or justify the facts or raise the question of competence, standard legal defenses, really. But he also mentions the option to plead for mercy, though he notes this shifts the style from forensic, arguing facts, to deliberative, appealing for clemency over strict justice. It shows this really nuanced understanding that different situations demand different tools: logic, emotion, strategy. A master orator needed the whole toolkit.
That Roman emphasis on both the intellect and the performance really gave us a holistic blueprint, didn't it? Okay, let's pivot now. From the grand stage, the public square, the courtroom, to the very personal journey. Discovering opportunity, cultivating success within ourselves.
Right. Moving from influencing crowds to influencing your own destiny.
Exactly. How do you find abundance, maybe where you least expect it?
This section really dives into the power of mindset and perception on personal wealth and fulfillment. And Russell H. Conwell, with his famous Acres of Diamonds lecture, delivers this core message. Every man has the opportunity to make more of himself than he does in his own environment, with his own skill, with his own energy, and with his own friends.
So opportunity isn't out there somewhere, it's right here.
That's the heart of it. It challenges that grass is always greener idea. And his parable of Ali Hafed illustrates it perfectly.
Ah, yes. The man who sells his farm to search for diamonds.
Only for the new owner to find acres of diamonds right there on the original property. It's such a potent story about overlooking the opportunities literally under our noses because we're chasing some grander, far-off dream.
It really makes you stop and think. And he had other examples, too.
He did. Another striking one is the professor of mineralogy, an expert who apparently sat right on that silver to make the bargain when selling his homestead in Massachusetts, completely unaware a block of native silver 8 inches square embedded in his own stone wall.
An expert in minerals missed a huge silver deposit in his own wall. Wow.
Incredible, right? Blind to the wealth right beneath him. It makes you wonder what we're all overlooking every day.
Definitely. How did Conwell actually apply this? How did he teach people to find their own acres of diamonds?
His method was very hands-on, very community-focused. When preparing his lectures, he'd actually visit the town, talk to the postmaster, the barber, the school principal, ministers, visit factories and stores.
Really getting the local intel.
Exactly. To learn their history, what opportunities they had, and what they had failed to do. Then he'd tailor his message specifically to their locality, pointing out unmet local needs that local people, with their existing skills, could potentially fill. He showed them their diamonds.
That's very practical. And he also challenged ideas about wealth itself.
Boldly. He challenged the prejudice against, as he put it, a Christian man from attaining unto wealth. He argued it was actually a Christian and godly duty to do so, provided it was done honestly. He flat out refuted the common misquote, "Money is the root of all evil," stating bluntly, it is all wrong to be poor anyhow.
That's a pretty radical stance for a preacher, especially back then, redefining success, even spiritual duty. And he shared business insights, too, like about John Jacob Astor.
Yes, the Astor example is great. Astor succeeded in the hat business, not just by filling a show window uptown with a lot of hats, but by actually going to the park, observing what kind of bonnets fashionable ladies were wearing.
Market research, customer centricity.
Exactly. Understanding the customer need, not just pushing product. Cromwell's own influence was huge, partly due to his utter simplicity. He wanted people to feel like they were listening to a friend.
Building connection.
Deep connection. And his genuine enthusiasm was apparently infectious. Temple University, which he founded, started with just 7 students in 1884. By 1915, it had over 88,000 students during his presidency. It shows how clear, empathetic communication plus a message about local opportunity can drive massive results.
Okay, so these aren't just feel-good concepts, they're actionable. How do we take this belief in potential in nearby opportunities and actually apply it? What's the blueprint for personal growth?
This is where we see individual transformation hinging on specific, repeatable principles. Earl Nightingale, in his famous recording, The Strangest Secret, boils it down to one core idea. We become what we think about.
We become what we think about. Simple but profound.
It's the foundation. He presents it not just as a nice thought, but as a fundamental law, like gravity, and he uses that powerful ship analogy to illustrate it.
The ship with a destination versus the one without.
Exactly. A ship with a definite port of call, a clear goal, will reach it 9,999 times out of 10,000. But a ship with no aiming point, no goal, no destiny, it'll likely sink or wind up a derelict. It's a stark reminder. You need clear goals, otherwise you're just adrift.
That image really sticks, makes the abstract concrete. And didn't he propose a way to test this, a 30-day experiment?
He did, a practical test to prove to yourself the enormous returns possible. He promised it would completely change your life for the better, though he admitted it wasn't easy.
What did it involve?
5 key steps. First, really internalize, emotionally and intellectually, that we literally become what we think about. Daily reflection needed. Second, consciously cut away all the fetters from the mind, realizing limitations are mostly self-imposed. This opens up huge possibilities.
Getting rid of limiting beliefs.
Precisely. Third, focus positively on one single major goal every day. Fourth, stop negative thoughts instantly. The moment they arise, replace them with a mental image of your positive goal. Requires constant vigilance.
Mental discipline.
Huge discipline. And fifth, do more than you have to do. Go the extra mile, knowing that returns in life must be in direct proportion to what you give. It's a whole system. Mindset, focus, action, and generosity.
That sounds incredibly demanding, but potentially transformative. And Ziglar builds on this, right? Getting even more specific about setting those goals.
Ziglar really hammers home the specifics. He says a goal properly set is partially reached. Why? Because setting it clearly is a strong statement of your belief that you can and will reach it.
Belief is key.
And specificity. He uses his own goal to lose 37 pounds as an example. It wasn't vague like lose weight. It was 37 pounds. It was big, long range, 10 months. But broken down into daily goals, just 1.9 ounces a day. And he had a detailed plan.
Breaking it down makes it manageable.
Totally. And his commitment to paper was intense. He actually wrote in his book manuscript that he weighed 165 pounds before he'd lost the weight when he still weighed 202. Talk about public accountability.
Wow, that's putting pressure on yourself.
Definitely a motivator. Ziglar also warns against negative goals, often revealed by thinking luck is involved. Successful people, he argues, don't rely on luck. They identify objectives, use their talents, and work hard. He prefers pluck over luck.
Intentionality again, taking ownership. And Les Brown adds another dimension, talking about purpose beyond just titles or external validation.
Right. Les Brown emphasizes defining yourself by your core values and relationships. He famously said something like, being the son of Mrs. Mamie Brown is far more important than being called senator. It's about that internal anchor, not just the external label.
Finding identity within.
And he translated that personal purpose into real community impact. He organized this huge, peaceful demonstration in Miami's Liberty City focused on voter registration. It resulted in 4,000 new voters. It shows how individual action, driven by purpose, can create significant collective change.
That's powerful. Then Tony Robbins really gets into the nitty-gritty of mastering our internal world, giving us specific tools to change how we feel and focus.
Robbins is all about the idea that our internal states are malleable, controllable. He champions transformational vocabulary.
Transformational vocabulary, what's that?
It's consciously choosing words to shape your emotional state, using words like passion or spectacular to intensify positive feelings, or deliberately choosing less intense words to diminish negative ones.
So instead of saying I'm furious, maybe choose I'm annoyed or even I'm a bit peeved to literally dial down the intensity.
Exactly. Or swapping I'm okay for I'm fantastic to ramp it up. It's recognizing that the words we use, even just in our heads, directly affect our neurochemistry and how we experience things. It's a powerful self-regulation technique.
Changing your state by changing your language. Cool. What else?
Modeling excellence, actively seeking out and analyzing behaviors that lead to success in others, and then systematically replicating those behaviors. It's like finding a blueprint from someone who's already built the house you want to build.
A shortcut through trial and error. Makes sense. What about communicating with others?
He talks about flexibility in communication and understanding metaprograms. These are like the unconscious filters people use to perceive the world.
Metaprograms. Like what?
For instance, some people are motivated toward pleasure. They move towards what they want. Others are motivated away from pain. They move away from what they don't want. Understanding that difference helps you frame things more effectively for them.
Tailoring your approach again.
Exactly. Or understanding if someone has an internal frame of reference, they trust their own judgment, versus an external one, they need outside validation or praise. Adapting your communication to these patterns builds rapport faster. He also stresses effective asking. Ask specifically. Ask someone who could help, and crucially, create value for the other person first. Make it a win-win.
So asking isn't just taking, it's potentially an exchange.
Ideally, yes. And it talks about reframing, finding constructive ways to look at situations or behaviors. But underlying all of Robbins' techniques is the core message. Success isn't just about knowledge, it requires action. You have to do the stuff.
Knowledge isn't power unless it's applied. Okay, this all feels very action-oriented, very modern. But you mentioned the ancient Stoic philosopher Seneca provides a timeless foundation for this kind of inner power.
Absolutely. Seneca's Stoicism offers this bedrock of inner peace and resilience. He tells us to scorn trivial fears, noting how many people are tormented by a trifle. True courage, he argues, isn't about being fearless, but about not fearing things like death, imprisonment, burning, the missiles of fortune, because fundamentally they are not evils, but only seem to be.
It's our judgment about them that makes them evil.
That's the Stoic view. The events themselves are external neutral. Our reaction is what causes suffering. Seneca encourages us to embrace the great and noble thing that is the human soul, which allows no limits except those which can be shared even by the gods, capable of reaching out into the boundless universe. It's a call for mental fortitude, expansive thinking.
And he even advises thinking about death daily.
Rehearse this thought every day, he says, that you may be able to depart from life contentedly. Why? Because if you accept mortality, if you realize death must either not come at all or else must come and pass away, it loses its terror. It provides this profound inner calm, a detachment from external chaos, which is essential for sustained personal power and purpose regardless of what's happening around you.
That Stoic foundation seems incredibly relevant for navigating today's world.
Okay, so we've gone from ancient rhetoric to modern mindset tools. Now let's connect it all to the collective. When that personal conviction we've been talking about meets a truly compelling cause, that's when history shifts, right?
Exactly. This is where we see how those inner games of conviction, purpose, and communication translate onto the world stage, creating massive ripples. We're moving to some really powerful examples of individuals whose words and actions demanded profound societal change.
Who we're looking at?
Let's start with Sojourner Truth. Her famous Ain't I a Woman speech, delivered around 1851, though the exact wording is debated, was a masterclass in challenging dual oppression, racism, and sexism. How did she do that so effectively?
Through powerful rhetorical questions and direct comparison, asserting her physical strength, her labor, her suffering as equal to any man's, and then demanding equal rights based on that shared humanity. In later documented speeches, like at the 1867 American Equal Rights Association Convention, she powerfully argued if they can dig up stumps, they can vote, linking physical capability directly to political rights, challenging both racial and gender norms simultaneously.
She didn't just talk about the present either, did she? She brought in history.
Yes, powerfully. She recounted how unfriendly whites first drove the Native American from his much-loved home and then stole our fathers and made bondmen and bondwomen. She highlighted the stark economic injustice. We have pursued the shadow, they have obtained the substance, we have performed the labor, they have received the profits. It's a devastating indictment of systemic exploitation.
And her personal commitment shone through.
Absolutely. Her declaration, "I must sojourn once to the ballot box before I die," just captures that deep personal resolve. And her famous line, "I can't write a book, but I can read the people," speaks volumes about her intuitive grasp of human nature and social dynamics. She connected on a gut level.
Then Frederick Douglass, another towering figure. His "What to the Slave is the 4th of July" speech is just blistering in its critique of American hypocrisy.
Absolutely blistering. Douglass doesn't shy away from the brutal reality. He includes what he calls the pathetic part, vividly describing the horrors of the internal slave trade. The human flesh jobbers, the sad procession, heading south, old men, young mothers weeping over their babies, the crack of the whip. He forces his audience, celebrating independence, to see the barbarity underpinning their prosperity.
He made it impossible to ignore, and he argued slavery wasn't just a Southern problem anymore.
Critically, he points to the recent fugitive slave law, arguing it effectively nationalized slavery, turning the entire broad Republican domain into hunting ground for men. No state was truly free from its reach.
And he contrasted American ideals with reality.
Fiercely, he critiques the flagrantly inconsistent politics and religion that boast of liberty while upholding slavery. His line, "You are all on fire at the mention of liberty for France or for Ireland, but are as cold as an iceberg at the thought of liberty for the enslaved of America," just exposes that profound moral dissonance. He even calls out the churches for their silence on the fugitive slave law, saying they were either stupidly blind or most wickedly indifferent, robbing religion of its meaning. It was an unflinching demand for consistency.
Decades later, different continent, Nelson Mandela delivered his famous "I am prepared to die" speech during the Rivonia trial. Similar themes of exposing systemic injustice.
Very similar in exposing the system, but also articulating a clear vision for the future. Mandela meticulously detailed the whole legislative framework of apartheid, showing how it's systematically creating black inferiority, economic hardship, and stripped away human dignity.
He got into the specifics of daily life under apartheid.
Yes, vividly. The devastating impact of the past laws, families forcibly separated, constant police surveillance, thousands jailed for minor offenses. He painted this picture of poverty, children roaming the streets, the breakdown of moral standards, rising violence, all directly linked back to the apartheid system.
But he didn't just describe the problem, right? He outlined the solution, too.
Crucially, yes. His demands were just abstract calls for justice. They were concrete human aspirations. Africans wanted a living wage, the right to live where they obtain work, the right to own land, to be part of the general population, and fundamentally for wives and children to live with them where they work. He articulated the tangible elements of a just life, making the cause deeply relatable.
Moving back to the U.S., the fight for women's rights offers more powerful examples of this kind of advocacy, blending rhetoric and action.
Absolutely. Think of Susan B. Anthony. Her simple but profound question, "Are women persons?" based on her reading of the Constitution, was revolutionary. She argued the Constitution says, "We the people," not we, the white male citizens, nor yet we, the male citizens, but we, the whole people. If women are people, she reasoned, then they are citizens entitled to vote under the 14th Amendment. It laid the intellectual groundwork for challenging legal exclusion, justifying her act of civil disobedience voting illegally. It exposed the hypocrisy.
And then Ruth Bader Ginsburg carried that torch forward legally.
Indeed. Described as the Thurgood Marshall of the women's movement, RBG's legal work was transformative. Her meticulously crafted briefs, particularly arguing under the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, systematically dismantled discriminatory laws. They shaped the legal arguments reflected in the court's opinions, leading to what's genuinely seen as a revolution in gender equality law.
Moving the needle through sheer legal brilliance and persistence. And she also had a broader vision.
Yes, her belief was that equality wasn't just for the excluded group, it benefited everyone. We will all profit from a more diverse, inclusive society, she said, understanding, accommodating, even celebrating our difference while pulling together for the common good. It's a vision of a richer society for all. And interestingly, she emphasized the judicial role is to persuade and not to pontificate.
Hmm.
Even from the bench, the goal is reasoned argument, building understanding.
Persuasion again. It all comes back to that. These voices, Truth, Douglas, Mandela, Anthony, Ginsburg, even Patrick Henry earlier, they show how deeply held conviction, articulated powerfully, can reshape societies.
Absolutely. They took their personal purpose and turned it into a collective force.
So how does that happen? How do these individual acts of courage, these powerful arguments coalesce into leadership that moves nations? What elevates a powerful voice into a sustained movement?
This really brings us back to the why, the underlying belief that galvanizes people beyond just following instructions. Simon Sinek captures this perfectly with his start with why concept.
The golden circle, right?
Yeah.
Why, how, what?
Exactly. He explains that truly inspiring leaders and organizations don't start with what they do or even how they do it. They start with why, their purpose, their cause, their core belief that has nothing to do with what they do.
So the what, the product, the policy, the action becomes proof of the why.
Precisely. The what becomes the tangible proof of their cause. And that's what generates loyalty, inspires action. People connect with the underlying belief, not just the features or the commands.
Which means the leader's job changes fundamentally.
It does. Sinek says, the leader's job is no longer to close all the deals, it is to inspire. It's a shift from transactional leadership, do this because I said so, to transformational leadership, do this because we believe in this. That creates much deeper engagement, a shared sense of mission.
You can see that in historical figures like Theodore Roosevelt, maybe. His man in the arena idea feels like that kind of leadership.
Definitely. Roosevelt embodied that. He believed a nation needed not just physical courage, but moral courage, self-restraint, and the capacity to work for and with others. And he lived it.
How so? Any examples?
Well, his intervention in the massive coal strike in 1902. He technically had no constitutional authority to get involved, but he did it anyway. Why? Not for personal gain, but to prevent acute misery and loss of life for the poor facing winter without coal. And interestingly, also to save the wealthy mine owners from the dreadful punishment which their own folly might bring down on them.
So, acting for the greater good, even mediating between opposing forces, driven by a sense of responsibility for the whole nation?
Exactly. Leadership beyond narrow self-interest or strict legal boundaries. And his vision was long-term. His square deal policies, his conservation efforts, they were built on the idea that for the people must always include the people unborn as well as the people now alive. That's stewardship. That inspires loyalty beyond the immediate political cycle.
Thinking about future generations, that's a powerful why. And Winston Churchill rallying Britain during World War II, another prime example of inspiring leadership.
Absolutely legendary. His speeches during the darkest days are famous for galvanizing a nation facing seemingly impossible odds. How did he do it?
How did he? What was the key?
In speeches like Their Finest Hour, his rhetoric directly appeals to the finest qualities of their race, asking for the highest service to their cause. He understood the sheer gravity of the situation required, tapping into that deep well of national resilience, shared identity, and purpose.
He didn't sugarcoat the danger, though.
Not at all. He used vivid imagery, acknowledged the grim reality, presented stark choices, but always paired it with this unshakable belief in their capacity to endure and ultimately triumph. He used history, evoked shared values, framed the struggle in epic terms. He articulated a compelling why survival, freedom, civilization itself that resonated so deeply it transformed individual fear into collective, defiant action.
So these leaders, whether using Sinek's modern framework or demonstrating it like Roosevelt and Churchill, they didn't just command, they connected people to a purpose larger than themselves.
That's the essence of transformational leadership.
Okay, it's clear words in leadership hold immense power for good, inspiring change, rallying nations. But we also need to acknowledge the other side, right? The darker aspects of human nature, the potential for harm, the unintended consequences. Our sources touch on this too.
They do. And it raises that vital question, what can we learn from history's horrors, from our own frailties, to build a better future? Elie Wiesel, reflecting on the Holocaust, speaks so profoundly to this. He famously said, history went mad. He struggled, as we all do, to comprehend the indifference surrounding the killers and the victims, how something so horrific could have been avoided.
That indifference is chilling, and he specifically warns about language itself.
Yes, a crucial warning for our times. He said, certain words are dangerous. They are carriers of death, and these words should be unmasked first and disarmed later. It highlights the immense responsibility that comes with communication, how rhetoric can be twisted, how propaganda dehumanizes, and the absolute necessity for critical thinking and courageous resistance against hate speech.
A powerful reminder. Then you have Kurt Vonnegut offering a different kind of critical reflection, maybe with more dark humor.
Vonnegut, yes, with his unique blend of cynicism and deep humanism. He pushed back against broad generalizations, like judging whole generations, reminding us we're all so close to each other in time that we should think of ourselves as brothers and sisters. Simple, but profound.
And he had thoughts on modern loneliness.
He did. He insightfully suggested humans are perhaps supposed to live in stable, like-minded, extended families of 50 people or more, and that maybe the breakdown of marriage isn't just personal failure, but stems from modern families being too small, too isolated. It challenges us to think about community structure.
Interesting perspective, and his views on forgiveness and patriotism were quite countercultural.
Very much so. He quotes Jesus, "Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us," and says, for those words alone, he deserves to be called the Prince of Peace. He contrasts this sharply with the logic of retribution, saying, every act of war celebrates Hammurabi. It's a stark choice. Mercy or eye for an eye.
And patriotism isn't just about war for him.
No. He challenges the idea that fighting is the only form of patriotism, celebrating instead the everyday heroes like volunteer firemen and rescue squads, people building and serving their communities. And he offers this beautiful, poignant acknowledgement of the blues as the absolutely priceless gift which African Americans gave to the whole wide world when they were still in slavery, finding profound creativity and resilience amidst unimaginable suffering.
Vonnegut always makes you see things differently. Finally, Brené Brown brings us right back to the personal, the emotional core: shame, vulnerability, connection, things that underpin everything else.
Absolutely. Brown defines shame as one of the most primitive human emotions, essentially the fear of disconnection. It's that deep-seated feeling that something we've done or failed to do makes us unworthy of connection, that toxic inner voice saying, I'm not good enough.
And she points out how it's often gendered.
Yes. She describes how societal shame messages often get organized by gender. Women pressured to be sweet, thin, pretty, quiet, perfect, not owning their power. Men pressured to stop feeling, start earning, be tough, climb to the top. These are harmful constructs we internalize.
And she draws a key distinction between shame and guilt.
Crucial distinction. Guilt says, I did something bad. Shame says, I am bad. Guilt can actually motivate positive change. You can apologize, make amends, learn. But shame, she argues, corrodes the part of us that believes we can do and be better. It paralyzes, takes away the opportunity to grow.
That makes so much sense. And her take on vulnerability is also quite nuanced, isn't it? It's not just oversharing.
Not at all. She warns against using vulnerability as a weapon or a defense mechanism, which she calls floodlighting your listener. That often pushes people away.
Yeah.
True vulnerability, she argues, is courageous, involves boundaries, and is about sharing appropriately with people who've earned the right to hear your story. It builds connection, rather than performing vulnerability, which creates distance.
So vulnerability is about courage and discernment, not just exposure.
Exactly. And she offers practical advice, too, like on managing fear. Acknowledge the fear, let the beast speak its warning, but then assert control. Okay, now you've said what you have to say, so please now leave me alone, go away. It's about managing the emotion, not letting it run the show. These reflections remind us that alongside history and rhetoric, that internal landscape, emotion, connection, integrity is just as critical.
Wow. We've covered a huge amount of ground, from ancient Greece to modern psychology, from stirring speeches to inner struggle.
We really have. And what emerges, I think, is that whether we're talking Aristotle or Patrick Henry or Brené Brown, the power to influence ourselves or others really boils down to a few critical, consistent elements.
Okay, let's recap those. What are the core threads?
Well, first, there's the clarity and, ideally, the truthfulness of the message. Plato's insistence on knowing the truth, or at least the deep conviction we saw in figures like Henry.
Right. Authenticity matters.
Second, a deep understanding of your audience or yourself. Aristotle emphasized tailoring the message. Conwell showed us finding opportunity means understanding our own environment.
Know who you're talking to, know where you stand.
Third, That unwavering conviction and passion behind the words. Think Cicero's Actio, Churchill's Defiance. You have to believe it.
Got to feel it to sell it.
Fourth, the sheer courage to act on those beliefs, pursue those goals, even when it's hard. Everyone from Demosthenes warning Athens to Mandela facing prison exemplifies this.
Action, not just words.
And finally, maybe underpinning it all is the willingness to connect authentically, to address the roots of disconnection, injustice, shame. A thread from Sojourner Truths appeals to humanity right through to Brené Brown's work on vulnerability.
Clarity, understanding, passion, courage, connection. Those seem to be the keys.
Those are the threads weaving through all these seemingly disparate sources. They reveal the enduring patterns of human influence and action.
So, bringing it back to you listening, what does this all mean for you? Well, it suggests the power to shape your world, your interactions, your own path forward. It's genuinely within your grasp.
It really is.
It's about being intentional with your words, like the orders taught us, being courageous with your actions, like the change makers showed us, and being empathetic in understanding others and yourself. Whether you're chasing a personal goal, trying to communicate better day to day, or hoping to make a difference in your community, these insights are directly applicable.
And maybe a final thought to leave you with. Consider this. If opportunities truly are like those acres of diamonds, right in our own environment, often hidden in plain sight, and if our thoughts literally shape our reality, as Nightingale argued,
Yeah.
then perhaps the greatest revolution isn't sparked on a grand stage or with a speech to thousands. Perhaps it begins much closer to home in the quiet discipline of our own minds and in the courageous, intentional choices we make day in and day out. The power to transform really does start with you.
A powerful thought to end on. We hope this deep dive has given you plenty to reflect on and, more importantly, to apply. Keep digging for those hidden opportunities, keep refining your own message, and keep inspiring the change you want to see in yourself and in the world around you. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.